General Threx Vaalorreturns, knelt before the Kari Dominion's obsidian throne with his sidearm placed on the marble floor before him. The ultimate gesture of surrender among his people. Blood crusted thickly along his mandibles. Behind him, through the massive viewport of the throne hall, the wreckage of 9 warships drifted in the void like scattered teeth. Empress, he rasped weakly, recall the fleet, recall every ship bound for the Sol system. I beg you, the court erupted instantly in hissing laughter. A general of the Dominion, conqueror of 40 worlds, on his knees over a single unremarkable species, from an unremarkable blue planet, Empress Ixxara Voss leaned forward on her throne of fused star metal, mandibles clicking with amusement. You lost 11,000 soldiers to primitives who don't even have faster-than-light drives, Threx. And you want me to retreat? They let us win, Threx said quietly. Every battle we thought we won, they let us win. I need you to understand what that means. The Empress's amusement died. Nobody in that hall understood yet that in 6 days, the Dominion's capital world would fall silent forever, and that the warning General Threx gave that day would be remembered as the last mercy the galaxy was ever offered. Threx had not always been a man who begged. In 40 years of service, he had ordered the surrender of 6 alien governments, had stood over conquered thrones, not unlike this one, and watched other generals kneel before him. He understood, with a clarity that made the marble floor feel colder beneath his knees, exactly what it meant to be on the other side of that moment now, and exactly as little his own Empress was likely to care. But none of this had begun that way. 3 weeks earlier, the Dominion first detected Earth. It began as a routine survey. A scout vessel skimmed past the edge of the Sol system, cataloging a small water world, with primitive radio chatter, and no visible orbital defenses. The report that reached Fleet Command was almost comically dismissive. Species designation, human. Technology level, pre-interstellar. Threat assessment, negligible. General Threx Vaalorreturns had built his 40-year career on conquering exactly this kind of world. Quickly, efficiently, with minimal Dominion casualties. He requested the assignment personally. It was meant to be a formality, a medal on the way to retirement. He had grown up on a Dominion border world himself, the son of a supply logistics officer, and had clawed his way into Fleet Academy on merit alone, at a time when merit rarely mattered more than lineage. Every conquest since had been proof, to himself as much as to the Empress, that he belonged among the Dominion's ruling class. Sol was supposed to be the quiet, uneventful capstone to that proof. His fleet of 9 cruisers dropped out of slipspace at the edge of Sol on a Tuesday, by Earth's calendar, though no human would ever call it that again. Open a channel, Threx ordered. Standard first contact protocol, give them the chance to kneel. The response came back in less than 4 minutes, startlingly fast for a species without FTL communication relay. A woman's voice, calm, almost bored. This is Fleet Admiral Ayanna Reyes of the Unified Earth Defense Coalition. You are currently inside the orbital patrol boundary of a sovereign system. State your intentions, or withdraw. Threx's second-in-command, a younger officer named Cesar, actually laughed. They have an admiral, and a coalition, how charming. Threx didn't laugh. Something about the woman's voice, the complete absence of fear, made the fine hairs along his exoskeleton rise. Advise them this is a Dominion acquisition, Threx said. Advise them resistance is statistically futile. The reply took 90 seconds. Statistically, Reyes said, so is arguing with people who show up uninvited to another star system with warships. We've tried diplomacy exactly once today. Consider this your only offer, leave, and no one has to find out what we're capable of. Sar was still laughing when Threx cut the channel. That was the moment. Though he wouldn't understand it for another 2 days, when General Threx Vaalorreturns' 40-year winning streak began to unravel. The humans hadn't overlooked one crucial detail. They'd been counting on it. The first engagement should have been a massacre. Threx sent 3 cruisers in a standard pincer formation toward what his sensors identified as Earth's largest orbital shipyard. Human vessels rose to meet them. Smaller. Slower by every metric the Dominion's sensors could read, armed with weapons that looked, by Kari standards, almost embarrassingly primitive. And then the humans didn't fight like it. They didn't form up in predictable defensive lines. They scattered, folded through the Dominion formation in patterns that made no tactical sense until, seconds later, Threx realized every human ship had positioned itself in the one blind spot his sensor arrays couldn't cross-reference. In real time, 3 Dominion cruisers took catastrophic damage to systems the humans had no logical way of knowing were vulnerable. "That's not possible," Cesar said, staring at the readouts. "Our shield harmonics are classified. How did they?" "They didn't know," Threx said slowly, watching the battle unfold. "They're improvising. In real time. Against an enemy they've never fought before. That was somehow worse. An enemy with a plan could be studied, anticipated, eventually countered. An enemy that simply adapted faster than his own fleet could react left him with nothing solid to plan against at all." Threx pulled his ships back that day. A tactical retreat, he told himself, not a defeat. But that night, alone in his command quarters, he reviewed the battle logs 17 times. He noticed something the sensors had recorded, but no one had flagged. In the chaos of the engagement, a human corvette had taken catastrophic damage, its hull breached, atmosphere venting into the void, and its crew had spent their final 90 seconds not evacuating, but redirecting power to cover the retreat of a slower vessel behind them. They'd died. So strangers could live. The Dominion had conquered 40 worlds. Threx had never once seen that. The truth stunned him more than any weapon could have. He almost recalled the fleet that night. His hand hovered over the transmission console for nearly an hour, the withdrawal order drafted and ready to send. But 40 years of conditioning held him back. A Dominion general did not abandon a campaign over one unsettling data point. Not without proof the Empress would accept as more than sentiment. He deleted the draft before dawn. It was a decision he would replay in his mind for the rest of his life. Over the following days, the pattern repeated, and worsened. Every engagement, the humans adapted faster than physics should have allowed. Every retreat bought them more information than it cost them in ships. And every human commander Threx intercepted communications from Reyes, then a grim-voiced man named Colonel Okafor, then a startlingly young engineer called Priya Anand, who somehow kept rerouting Dominion targeting arrays mid-battle, spoke with the same infuriating, unshakable calm. It wasn't arrogance. Threx had fought arrogant species before. Arrogance cracked the moment reality intruded. This was something else, something closer to certainty. The Council had made a terrible mistake, sending only 9 ships. Threx knew that now, but pulling back completely would mean admitting to the Empress that a negligible threat had cost the Dominion 3 cruisers and 11,000 souls in under a week. So instead, Threx made a decision that would define the rest of his life. He requested a ceasefire, not to regroup, but to talk. Admiral Reyes agreed almost instantly, which unsettled him more than any weapon. They met aboard a neutral shuttle, exactly 6 armed personnel on each side, in the black nothing between Earth and Mars. Reyes was smaller than he'd imagined, dark-eyed, unarmed except for a sidearm she never touched. Threx had expected a negotiator's mask. Practiced warmth, careful diplomatic language, the kind every species used to buy time. Instead, Reyes simply looked tired, the way a parent looks after protecting something for far too long without rest. "You're losing," she said, without preamble, "not the battle. The war you don't know you're already fighting." "Explain," Threx said. "You've been testing us for a week," Reyes said. "Congratulations, we've been testing you the exact same length of time. We know your shield frequencies now, your fleet communication lag, your command structure's decision-making delay under pressure, which, incidentally, is 4.7 seconds slower than ours. We know roughly how many more ships the Dominion can commit to this system before it becomes a resourcing problem for whoever's paying for this war back home." Threx felt something cold settle in his chest. "You're bluffing? Ask your engineers why 3 of your cruisers have started experiencing intermittent targeting failures in the last 2 days, Reyes said. "We're not omnipotent, General. We're not gods, and we're not overpowered. We're just very, very good at learning fast under pressure. Because for most of our history, that was the only thing standing between us and extinction. You picked the wrong species to underestimate. Nobody knew what the humans had actually been hiding until that moment. Not a superweapon, not a hidden fleet, but an entire civilization's instinct for rapid adaptation, hardened over 10,000 years of wars, plagues, and disasters that should have wiped them out and never quite managed to. Why tell me this? Threx asked. Why not simply let us walk further into the trap? Ryaz's calm cracked, just slightly, the first real emotion he'd seen from her. Because I don't want a trap, General. I want this to stop. Every day this continues, more of your people die for a resource extraction contract, and more of mine die defending a rock we didn't ask you to notice. I'm giving you a chance to walk away with your fleet intact and your reputation salvageable. Take it back to your Empress. Tell her the truth. Threx studied her a long moment. And if she doesn't listen? Reyes's expression didn't change. Then in 6 days, whatever fleet the Dominion sends next won't get a ceasefire offer. It'll get exactly what its predecessor earned. That was the conversation Threx carried back to the obsidian throne, kneeling with his weapon surrendered on the marble, begging an empress who had never once in her reign retreated from anything. They are not overpowered, Threx said, forcing the words out. That's what makes them dangerous. They win through discipline, through sacrifice, through learning faster than we can adapt to being learned. Empress, I have led armies across 40 conquered worlds. I have never seen a species fight like this. I am asking you, not as your general, but as a man who watched his fleet fall to people who could have annihilated us and chose to warn us instead, leave Sol alone. The silence in the throne room stretched unbearably long. Courtiers, who moments earlier had hissed with laughter, now stood frozen, sensing for the first time that the ground beneath the obsidian throne itself had shifted. Even if none of them yet understood how, then Empress Ixxara Voss rose from her throne, and for one fragile heartbeat, Threx believed she might actually listen. Fleet command, she said instead, her voice carrying across the hall like a verdict, mobilize the 2nd and 4th armadas, full deployment to the Sol system. I want that world's surrender in 10 days, and I want General Threx Vaalorre's failure erased from Dominion record. Threx closed his eyes. Somewhere, 6 days from now and 30 light-years distant, Admiral Ayanna Reyes was almost certainly already tracking the very fleet that had just been ordered into motion. Not with fear, but with the calm, terrible patience of a species that had survived every extinction the universe had thrown at it, and intended to survive this one too. The Empress had made her choice. Humanity had already made theirs. 3 weeks earlier, the moment they decided not to run, the Dominion's capital world would remember General Threx's warning for exactly 6 more days. And then, it would remember nothing at all, because the empire that ignored it would spend the next generation learning one devastating lesson at a time, that mercy offered once is not an offer extended twice. In the years that followed, what remained of the Dominion's fractured territories would tell the story differently, depending on who survived to tell it. Some called it a curse, a species of monsters who had feigned weakness only to unleash annihilation once provoked. Others, quieter and closer to the truth, called it exactly what General Threx had tried to name in that throne room. A warning given freely, by a species that understood better than anyone what it cost to be underestimated, and who offered the Dominion the one mercy their own doctrine had never extended to a single conquered world. The chance to simply walk away. The Empress never got the chance to regret her choice. History remembers her only as the ruler who heard the truth from her most decorated general, and chose pride instead, a lesson every Dominion successor state would spend the next 100 years trying not to repeat.